So, firstly, I feel I must apologize for the fact that I'm inside rather than outside. And it's just because it's easier to do a video like this from inside the warmth of my little house here. Um, Hello, everybody. Welcome to and welcome back to my channel, Book Time with Elvis with me, Mark. And I've come to you today with some recommendations for some Victorian and Edwardian ghost stories. Because, of course, December is the month of Ghosts of Christmas Past, resurrecting a tradition. The name of this event, I realize I have been misnaming, even though I'm a co-host, because I'm sure I saw somebody somewhere call it Ghosts of Christmas Past Resurrected, which is kind of a cool title too, but it's not up to me to really change the title, as of course this is an event created by the superb Vin from Revenant Reads, as well as a load of other awesome co-hosts, all of whom, of course, will be listed down below. Now, I suppose this is a mixed bag of recommendations and suggestions. I can't recommend books I haven't read, and some of these I haven't read, and in others, of course, there are short story collections where I've read some and not others. But I think you'll forgive me for that. So, because I suppose a lot of people don't watch through to the end of these videos, I will start off with a particular favourite of mine, and it's a very thin book as well, and a lovely cover, and it's After Supper Ghost Stories by Jerome K. Jerome. Now, of course, any usual viewer to this channel knows that Jerome K. Jerome authored my all-time favourite book, Three Men in a Boat, but he also read a lot of other cool stuff too, if you were to dive into it. And this is, to me, no exception. It's an amusing take on the Victorian tradition of telling ghost stories around the festive period. And, it does follow that kind of proper tradition. The setting is such. I'll read you the back. As they relax after dinner on Christmas Eve, members of Uncle John's family and their guests turn to telling stories about their encounters with ghosts. These supernatural accounts range from the melancholy to the humorous and get increasingly bizarre as the companions get drunker and the talk turns to spirits allegedly residing under the very roof of the house they are sitting in, and one of them decides to investigate whether these apparitions are fact or fiction. And I think I read the whole thing on my channel either last year or the year before around Christmas time. So maybe I'll leave a little link up the top here. I think it usually pops up, at least to the first part of that, if anyone would be interested in listening. It's great fun. Not necessarily the most terrifying or amazing piece of work in the world, but as I say, a lot of things that make something a corker or a cracker or that I enthuse about is more because of the enjoyment I get from it, whether not necessarily its literary merit. And I think that's something that sometimes is overlooked by a lot of people on here who just want to expound the literary virtues of a book or how well something is written, rather than actually just gush over the fun they had reading it. That's not, of course, entirely always the case. And another one I'm going to recommend is actually, is it Victorian? I suppose it is just maybe just about, but it's not English. It's a translation here, and I don't know if I can actually see. 1849, it was originally published in French. So it is, at least Victorian in era. And it's quite similar, actually, to Jerome K. Jerome's book, because, again, it's a gathering of people who sit down and tell stories. And this time it's by that wonderful French author, Alexandre Dumas, author, of course, of The Count of Monte Cristo or The Three Musketeers. And it's called The 1001 Ghosts. And again, if you'll indulge me, I'll read the back to you. Coming back into town after a hunting expedition, Alexandre Dumas, you see he's in the story himself, witnesses an incredible scene. A man has come to hand himself in to the mayor after decapitating his wife, terrified by the fact that her severed head spoke to him even after her death. This prompts the guests at a dinner Dumas attends later that evening to exchange stories of death and the supernatural, ranging from accounts of the guillotine during the Terror to tales of vampires and fratricide in the Carpathian Mountains. And again, I really enjoyed it. It maybe has its flaws, and probably you haven't heard of it, and there may be a reason for that in terms of it being not necessarily a critical success, but it's good fun, and I would suggest it is something you might want to try during this month. Now, of course, Christmas is the time for Charles Dickens, and of course many of you may have read Christmas Carol, but Dickens also wrote supernatural short stories, and I have some here, and I have read a few of them. I haven't read all of them, but there are spooky and ghost and apparitions and things appear in these stories. And Rudyard Kipling too is another one who wrote some ghost short stories which are worth checking out, but I don't actually have a book of them here. If you want excellent fun and reading of ghost stories, then you can't go wrong with Montague Rhodes James, or M.R. James. This is just a Penguin, I don't know the name, English Library, I think, anthology of his ghost stories, or collection of his ghost stories. Now, Penguin do a 2-volume set of his complete ghost stories, which I also have, but I didn't want to bring out all my books into here, so I just thought I'll take this one for reference. And he's great fun, fantastic, and quite spooky, some of them actually. I can give you the blurb from the back. These chilling tales from the master of the English ghost story reveal a world where the familiar becomes diabolical. The smallest object takes on horrifying properties, and evil brushes against everyday life in unexpected ways. In these stories, among others, a disturbing engraving reveals a macabre secret. A whistle unleashes unspeakable malevolence. An ancient curse is passed on, and a grisly crime is avenged from beyond the grave. So, who wouldn't want to read that after that description, eh? Somebody else who's very well known for their ghost stories, and a contemporary and friend of the aforementioned M.R. James, is, or at least his brother was, maybe I'm confusing the two, but it doesn't matter, is E.F. Benson. And here's a collection of his ghost stories called Night Terrors. And he was a very good storyteller of these ghost stories. I haven't read all of them. I've only actually read, I think, 3 from this book, but I am going to sit down probably this evening and read some more. Somebody else who I really enjoy, but I've only read one kind of ghost story or horror story by them, so I don't know how many are actually in this book. But it's W.W. Jacobs here, and this is a collection called The Grey Parrot, but within here is a very famous short story by him to do with the supernatural, and that is, of course, The Monkey's Paw, and that is also featured in Otto Penzler's big book of ghost stories as well. So, where of course in the previous one you get only stories by Jacobs, in this one you get a whole raft of stories by people like Joyce Carol Oates, Rudyard Kipling, luckily is included in there, Isaac Asimov, James McRae, Saki, Oscar Wilde, H.R.F. Keating, Willa Cather, many, many more, including, I'm sure I read, it includes the Monkey Paw rather. It's even got H.P. Lovecraft, August Derleth, and I should have really checked it. It's divided into different segments. Where are we? So who else is in here? O. Henry's in there, Ambrose Bierce, Lafcadio Hearn, E.F. Benson again, and more. Mark Twain, of course, as well. Nathaniel Hawthorne. Already mentioned Oscar Wilde, haven't I? Wilkie Collins, of course, yeah, why not? Of course, you can't have a collection like this without M.R. James. Washington Irving, naturally. Edith Wharton as well. And Algernon Blackwood. So big names here that well worth checking out for this event. And yes, The Monkey's Paw is definitely in there, as well as The Toll House by W.W. Jacobs. And lastly, of course, this is just a small list of all the wonderful things you could try, but you could, of course, go as well to someone like Arthur Conan Doyle, who wrote a lot of horror or supernatural short stories, including these two collections here, Tales of Terror and Mystery and Tales of Twilight and the Unseen, both of which include tales that will give you chills and the creeps, which is just what you want around Christmas time. So there we have it. There's my, I think, relatively short list of suggestions and recommendations for you if you are struggling to find something to read. I will mention as well that with my Patreon, we are reading the Penguin book of ghost stories, which is another thing, of course, you can check out if you want. It's got a good group of people in it as well. It's the Penguin book of ghost stories from Elizabeth Gaskell to Ambrose Bierce, and of course, Elizabeth Gaskell is our author of the event, and her book, The Old Nurse's Tale, The Old Nurse's Story, is the choice for the group read for this event. So there we have it. A bit bumbling, I apologise, but I wanted to get this out there before we get too far into December. Here it's the first Sunday of Advent, and it's quite a big thing here, so I'll be attending an event later for the lighting of the tree and lighting of the candle and all that kind of stuff. So I wish you and your family, of course, a very happy first Advent Sunday. Do take care, everybody. Bye-bye.